right, welcome everyone. I am Karen Hilo and excited to have locals only. We've been doing this for a year now, so if you've missed any of the sessions, they're all recorded and on YouTube. So um, we've had some great speakers. I know Michael's not going to disappoint us either, just from what I've learned about him. Michael Krumpak is the CEO of L4 Learning Solutions and a PC credentialed coach. His work incorporates over 3 decades of extensive experience in learning, performance, business, organizational development, and leadership and career coaching. He coaches clients from around the world on all things leadership and career development, and he has a bachelor's degree in business and organizational communication with a minor in music from the University of Akron, plus a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from the University of Baltimore. He's also a certified Hogan Leadership Assessment administrator and interpreter. I feel like we need way more time, Michael.
Please.
Michael has led multiple projects that have made significant positive change at organizations, including the United States House of Representatives, Samsung, American Airlines, Deloitte, Gartner, Nike, New York Life, as well as the Defense Intelligence Agency in DC. Michael was awarded the Small Business Association's SCORE Chapter Gold Award for Outstanding Facilitation and Best America's Coach by Coach Awards in both 2022 and 2023. He teaches graduate level leadership development courses at Catholic University and is completing his book, Why Smart Leaders Do Stupid Things, Lessons Learned from Lousy Leaders. And now he's going to teach us how to deliver excellent, engaging webinars, or in his words, how to do webinars that don't suck. So thank you, Michael. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Can you guys see the slide okay?
Yeah.
Thumbs up? Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for showing up. This is kind of like a passion project for me. I don't do a lot of training people on how to do webinars, but like I grew up doing like speech competitions. My first webinar was in 2006 when I worked in leadership development at AOL. And I really like it. And it's so interesting how the technology has evolved over the years. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to ICF members. I also had permission. Thank you, Jimmy, for allowing me to invite some other people in my network that I see that you popped on. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. The purpose for today is kind of two things. This is more of skill building to help you think about your executive presence when you're delivering webinars, to think about how you can utilize technology, but also it's about growing your business. And I don't know about you, but I enjoy coaching, I enjoy training. Like doing sales and doing like business development does not come naturally to me. And I've been in business for a little over 4 years. And it's something that I really have tried to work at. And one of the opportunities I think for coaches, and we'll get to know a little bit about who's here and what kind of coaching do you do and things like that. But one of the opportunities is to kind of help more people and develop more people through some other different offerings. And some of these offerings are webinars and master classes and trainings, and we'll talk all of that. But it's an opportunity for you to kind of share with everyone if you have some tips and techniques about things that you do when delivering webinars. And basically, we're going to focus on what I call the 2 T's of webinar development. We're going to talk about the technology, and then we're going to talk about techniques. So hopefully at the end, you'll have a couple new tips and tricks and some ways that you can develop some new webinars, hopefully. So just in the chat pod, if you could, let's start. I'm just kind of curious where everyone's kind of located. Where are you calling in from, or where are you connecting in from? So in the chat pod, just like city, state, or if you're outside the US country. So Miami, thank you. Ontario, yay. Cooper City, Florida. Awesome. Great. Thank you. Palm Beach. Oh, New York, thank you. Good. I always think it's nice to kind of see where people come in from. So the roadmap for today, I want to talk about you. What do you want to get out of this webinar? What are some of your experiences? So we have some polls, we'll have some chat conversations. Certainly, if at any time you can raise your hand, there should be a virtual hand that you can put up. or you can just unmute your mic. We have kind of a nice small group here. So I just invite you to share any ideas or ask any questions along the way. We'll talk briefly about the state of coaching, some statistics, get a sense of what the International Coaching Federation says about that. And then we'll kind of go into the content, which is more about how to become what I like to call a virtual meeting virtuoso. And at the end, I'll give you some freebies, I'll give you some tools, and I also have a special invitation for you. So one of the first things that I think everyone should be doing in webinars is establish ground rules. One of the ground rules I like to suggest is if you feel comfortable and you're in a place where you're not going to like, drive off the road, but uh, we'd love to see you. So if you could turn on your camera, it gives us kind of more of an opportunity to kind of see who's there. And certainly, if you need to pop off or whatever, that's fine. But I think it's always good. And when you're doing webinars, it's good to have ground rules. Like if we're going to communicate, hold your questions to the end or use the chat pods or anything like that. And about a year ago, I put together this. It's a really quick series, and I'll share it with you at the end, but it's called Leadership in About 30 Seconds, and they're just quick tips. And the episode or the training is about becoming a virtual meeting virtuoso. So some of the stuff we talk about will be some of the highlights from that course, and then I'll give you some access to that at the end. So, Karen, I'm going to ask that you open up our first poll. And I just want to get a sense. I know we've been on a million webinars. I was trying to count the number of webinars I've been on this year. It's probably over 20, maybe even over 30. But in terms of like how you're leading, I'm curious if you've had an opportunity to lead webinars either in the last 6 months, last 12 months, maybe it's been a while, or maybe you've never led a webinar. But are we able to open up the poll? Are you able to do that?
Yep, here we go.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So for this one, I'm going to ask you to select the best answer. But it's always good when you start webinars to get a sense of like, who's your audience? Like, are they experienced? Are they novice? Have they been doing it? So it's good to do some polls. I love doing polls, and you can display the results live, or what we're doing right now, we close them and then display them for everyone. So, okay, we're going to give you a couple more seconds. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and share the results. So it looks like 38% of you have actually done a webinar in the last 6 months. That's pretty good. Last 12 years, 12 months, 13%. Feels like 12 years. And four or out of the 8 people that did the poll have never done a webinar. So that's awesome. Danny, it looks like you did your first one. So great. So, well, let's talk about what we're going to cover in terms of like what is a webinar. So we can go ahead and close the poll if you guys can still see that. But so there's different types of webinars, and there's master classes, which is kind of the new sexy term. There's executive forums where you bring in executives and you give them some new methodology or research summaries, trainings. I know I've done like a 12-week challenge. Some of you that have been doing wellness or life coaching or things like that. I've seen a lot of like 12-week challenges. And then ICF has been doing a lot of live streams lately as well. And in terms of like the business reason for doing webinars, it gets people to show an interest in your topic. So it generates leads. It helps you create your credibility. It increases your brand exposure, allows you to grow your audience. It's an opportunity to capture perhaps email addresses if you have an email list or distribution list, or to drive people to your website. And so I'm just curious, have you guys done webinars for a particular reason? Like anything else that isn't here other than like to explain coaching or professional development? Just in the chat pod, if you've done anything else that I'm missing, feel free to share that. Could also be to talk about new technology, like Zoom has come out with a lot of new bells and whistles. When you're running a webinar, it used to be a couple little buttons at the bottom, and now it's kind of expanded to it goes across the entire screen. There's a lot of new tools there. So some of it could be helpful to explain the webinar. All right. So now I would like to ask you our first chat question. Well, I guess it's our second one, but the first scheduled one here. What would you like to walk away with from today's webinar? Why did you sign up? What are you hoping to learn? And this is a kind of a good opportunity to get a sense of, when I talked a little bit about the purpose of today, was that pretty much on track with what you wanted to talk about, or were there some other things that you were hoping to get? So think about it for a second. And in the chat pod, what are you hoping to walk away with or get from today's webinar? Courage to do one-on-one, probably and most about the tools. So Karen, when you say one-on-one, can you open up your mic and just give me a double click on what that looks like? I think you might be muted, or at least
Yeah,
I
I
can't
was. Sorry,
hear.
I couldn't.
Okay.
It wasn't
Yeah,
clicking.
yeah. That's okay.
No, it says courage to do one, and that's
Oh,
yeah, and that's just probably mostly about the tools.
yeah. Okay. So the courage to do your first webinar.
Mhm.
Great. Good. Cheryl, a few gems to improve your webinars. Her webinars are excellent. I learned all about LinkedIn from her a little over a year ago, and it's good to see you again. So yeah, we could probably learn a lot from Cheryl on this too. So send all your questions to her. Let's see how to get people to join the webinar. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about marketing, but not so much. In an hour, we're pretty compressed with what we talk about. But that said, at the end, I want to be able to like open up for questions. So it would be an opportunity for us to maybe share best practices or some things to get more leads. I've been trying to lean into LinkedIn. I know Jimmy has. I know a lot of other people. And I just hate doing newsletters. I'm trying to do more of them. I did one last week and I mentioned it because I had the promotion code. So newsletters are kind of a nice way to do it. And then just reaching out to like your network. I'm in a couple mastermind groups, and some of you are from those groups on this call. So just opening up the invitation. But we can talk a little bit later if you have some other ideas. Tips to make webinars impactful. Suggestions to improve assertiveness. Okay. Patricia, what can you clarify a little bit what you mean by the assertiveness? I think you're muted. Sorry.
Yes, it happens that sometimes I have a lot of things to explore with the audience, but it's too much, maybe too much
Yeah.
things. So in terms to be less confusioning, okay, I would
Okay.
say, yes, also because I'm Italian, and so I have also, to speak in English. So at the end, it could be overwhelming also for me, for
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm. Good. Good. So ways to be a little bit more direct, a little bit assertive, kind of keep the conversation going, maybe manage your time. And, if English isn't your second language, like making sure that you kind of design things so you're as crisp as possible. So yeah. And like
Yeah,
sometimes if you have like open-ended questions and things like that, you can lose complete track of time. And it depends on what your objective is as a facilitator. Are you like trying to go through all the content? Are you just trying to make sure people get something? So it sort of depends what your focus is, like how much you want to be very casual versus very assertive. So that's a great topic to bring. Let's see the other one, some
thank
details,
you.
gain clarity on how to do webinars more successfully. Okay, great. If you guys think of anything, pop them into the chat along the way. And we'll talk a little bit about some statistics, and then we'll get into some of the technology, and then we'll talk about some of the techniques. So Webinars are endorsed by ICF, and they're great ways of coaching. And even if you don't do webinar, you do Zoom meetings, there's some things that I'm hoping that you might be able to lift from today's conversation that you might even be able to apply to your one-on-one coaching. But webinars can really facilitate continuous learning, professional development. Nobody had to worry about parking today. No one had to like worry about, what do you wear? Like I'm barefoot right now, it's like there's like a nice luxury of like having webinars. So you have a little bit more flexibility. There's a quicker drive time. You can just kind of show up, and there's pros and cons to it. And it would be nice if we were in a room together, we could all see each other. But actually, for the topic today, it's probably even more appropriate just to be on Zoom for today. And there's more people coaching. There's more people that are interested in coaching. So it's an opportunity to really get in front of more people and share some of the great insights and some of the great lessons that you've learned from doing your executive coaching. And if you look at like a decade ago, about 35% of coaches out there were using webinars, and that's jumped up about 20% in the last 10 years. So there's a huge opportunity for us as coaches to leverage webinars. So I have another poll for you if we could bring up. I'm just kind of curious, in addition to coaching, what else do you do for your clients? Do you do consulting, training, facilitation, mentoring, teaching, supervising, or you don't do anything, you just do 100% coaching? So let's open up the next poll, give you about maybe 7 seconds to complete that, and we'll get a sense. And then I'll give you what the averages are also, so you can compare what you're doing to some others. So you can pick multiple on this one. So if you do consulting and mentoring, you can select both of them. But I thought it would be interesting to see where you are focusing outside of coaching, if you are. Okay, waiting for two more people, one more person. We're going to give you 5 seconds. All right. Karen, let's close the poll. So I'm going to write these down here. So consulting, 38%. Training, 75%. That's amazing. Guys are in the right place. Facilitation, which I know is kind of the sister to training, 25. Mentoring, 38. Teaching, 38. And no one's doing supervision. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. So ICF did a study earlier this year, and they did this future of coaching. Maybe some of you are familiar. If you're not, it's on their website. If you're a member, I know it's free. But this is what they said. So they said 59% of coaches are also doing consulting. We were at 38%. 58% of coaches are also doing training. We're way, 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 way above that at 75%. And then for the facilitation, 55%. We were a little bit low at 25%. So it's just a great opportunity to think, in addition to coaching, what else can we be doing? And it sounds like we're doing training, which is great. And I'm just kind of curious, are you guys doing training on how to be a coach? Or are you doing like professional development, leadership training? You could answer that in the chat pod if you feel comfortable. What kind of training are you doing, since 75% of you are doing that in addition to coaching? I can't say. Oh, wait, here they are. Okay. I had to scroll down my chat. Professional development, leadership training, professional development. Okay. So I feel like we need to be sharing our training because we're all kind of like doing the same thing. That's what I do as well. Okay, great. So 75%. That's awesome. And then the last question before we kind of get grooving here is, in the chat pod here, I'm just curious, like, how many webinars have you been to this year? I think for me, I'm going to say like 25. So I'll play along here and type in 25. How many webinars have you been to? 6 to 10, 20. Wow. Okay. Cheryl, you win. Danny, 6 to 10, 1 to 5, 16 to 20, 30. Okay. So lot of you have been on webinars. So there's probably a lot of things that you've seen that you like that you can kind of lift and use. And there's probably some things that might be some pet peeves. And just full transparency, some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today, it's just my perception. So like as Karen said, like my background's in communication and I've done lots of stuff. And there's certain things that I think really create more intimacy and a connection with your audience. And there's other things that don't. So some of what we're going to talk about is based on research and best practices. Other is just what Michael Krumpak thinks. So now we're going to kind of transition and talk about how do you become a virtual meeting virtuoso? And like I said, there's two T's of terrific webinars. There's the technology and the technique. And it is surprising to me how many people do not leverage the technology correctly. And for me, it's a pet peeve. I had paid like $500 for this like weekend webinar series. The Wi-Fi connection of the actual presenter kept like slowing down. She ended up turning off her camera. She had her colleague also on the same Wi-Fi, and it was just like crazy. And I'm gonna give you a quick hack so that that will never ever happen to you. And there's also webinars where people like you can't see them, you can't hear them. So we're gonna talk about all the technology. And as we go along, like let me know like what some of the thoughts are that you have. But here are what I call virtual prep steps. So there's 4 things to do, and I usually start like 90 minutes before the webinar. So 90 minutes before the webinar, I rebooted my computer. I brought it up. I ran a virus checker. I closed like 80 million tabs that I've had up for probably like the last 3 weeks just to like optimize everything. I rebooted the router. So I literally went over to my router, unplugged it, waited a minute, plugged it back in. And the other thing that I'm doing that, to be honest with you, I have not done that. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to do this if I'm gonna like, tell everybody what the best practices are. But be a cord cutter. Actually use a wired connection, not wireless. And I'm gonna show you how much faster and more reliable a wired connection is in a little bit. So this is my router. I unplugged it. I have this cord going to my laptop, and then this is plugged in here. So one of the most important, easiest things that you can do is just shut off Wi-Fi. I get it. If you're in a work setting or if you're in a hotel or whatever, I'm going to give you like the ideal, like blue skies type of ideas. And you can choose what you want. So yesterday at 5:30 p.m., I'm like, I wonder how fast my connection is. So I was on Wi-Fi and I ran, it's called speedtest.net. And it gives you your download speed and your upload speed. So download speed was 25, which is it's okay. Nothing to write home about. But then I plugged it in. What do you think the number was when I plugged it in? Any guesses in the chat pod? From 25 to what do you think my MBP megabytes per second? Sorry. 300. Okay. 200. It was actually 924. So according to my non-math degree math, that's 37 times faster than Wi-Fi. So it's an opportunity for you to use a corded connection and improve the connectivity and improve the speed. Okay. And speedtest.net, if you don't know what that is. So another thing that I like to do, and so I used to work at Gartner. I was running this big webinar. There were probably like 1,000 people on it. They were doing construction down the hall, and they actually severed the cord. And I had no backup plan. So I had to like just reschedule it. And then I had like maybe 50 people the next time. So what I do before every webinar, and you may have to pay extra for this, but get a hotspot and turn it on. So if something happens and like even the electricity goes out, I'm still going to have my phone charged. I'm going to have a hotspot and I have battery in my computer that I'm going to be able to connect that. And that seems like that's resonating for Cheryl and some more people. And you can buy the little hotspot adapters too. Let me just pause for a second. Do you guys hear my dogs barking? I don't know if you hear it. Okay. All right. I lock them away and I can kind of hear them barking. But the nice thing is Zoom has some really good background filters, and there's also some AI filters that I haven't tried, but like people like swear by it, like a dog's in the like next to someone barking and you can't even hear it. So there's a lot of really good tools out there that can actually help you with your audio for that.
On
So prepare your
Michael, if I can
space.
just say
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah, please.
on the talk of the the AI thing that can come in and help noise reduction. It's also a
Yeah.
massive processor hog, so don't use it during your webinar.
Oh, that's good tips. Okay. All right. So it's going to cut down on your bandwidth. Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, I think Zoom is good, and we're not going to get into all the settings with Zoom, but if you have not looked at Zoom in a while, there's a lot of new things. Like you can like change how like touched up your camera looks like, so you look all smooth. You can change like how sensitive you want the microphone to be. So there's a lot of really good things that probably are a little better than some of these new AI tools. So what do? I use a sound filter outside my door. Sometimes I put one in the door. It basically makes like a kind of silent tornado that kind of deadens the information. I know like therapists use it a lot as well. I have a Ring doorbell, which not only does it take up Wi-Fi, but it can be distracting for me and barking dogs and everyone else that can hear it. So I unplug my doorbell. So if you're able to do that, that's another technique. Here are my dogs that I hear barking, but you can't, so that's good. So lock up your pet. So I have a bedroom across my house. They're there. I'm in my home office today. I gave them a little CBD. It didn't seem to be working too bad, but at least it's not too distracting. So again, it's just you're trying to like set yourself up for as like to look as crisp and professional as possible. And maybe you think some of this is a little too much, and that's fine. But these are just things to think about. They also could be if you have a brand new client or you're dealing with your dream client or a dream prospect, you want to make sure that you kind of step it up and you're on your A game a little bit. So these are some techniques to do. So what I use, I have a wireless headset, and Jimmy and I were talking when everyone was gathering. There's wired connections, which is probably preferred. But this is called shock. And basically, long story short, it vibrates the bones in your ear. So it doesn't go like over my ear. So that's why I can still hear my dogs barking. But it's kind of a nice way that you can still hear what's going on around you. I know runners like this because they can like still hear traffic and things like that. But kind of the theory is you want your audio to be as crisp as possible. And if you're just talking into the speaker, there's probably it's not going to be as crisp and clear as perhaps a headset. So the other thing is you want to find a spot aesthetically pleasing. And this is where we get a little bit picky here. So, take it or leave it. And I know some of you guys like use this and some of them you don't. So no judgment here, just presenting information. So tell me what is wrong with this picture. And you can open up your phone line because I'm getting lonely here talking by myself. But what do you notice in this picture?
The focus is not the presenter.
The focus is not presenter. Yeah, what are you focusing as the customer? What are you looking at?
The mess?
Looking at the mess. Yep. Anything else that you noticed? Anyone else?
Well, there's a fire hazard, but yeah, it looks like a tornado came through, so maybe someone needs to call 911.
Yeah, and let me tell you, true story to this. I had a client that came to me so I do leadership and career coaching, as Karen said, and he's like, I'm really having a hard time finding a job. He's like, I'm getting all these interviews, but no one's calling me back. And I'm like, okay, let's have a quick conversation. I swear his bed looked exactly like this. He literally was in a room in his bedroom with there were laundry baskets, there were clothes, there were all that stuff. So again, there's some things that, you may not have like a lot of different options, but keep in mind you want things to look as crisp and professional as possible. For me, ceiling fans that are spinning that reflect off of something or I can see it or the light, like that's really aggravating for me. I like candles. Candles make me feel relaxed. I actually have one here, but it's like off camera here. So anything that's like buzzing or moving or flickering or anything like, again, we want to keep the focus on you, the presenter.
Also,
So what do you think of, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I realize normally I wear a white shirt, but Michael's got the right thing. Like wearing, gemstone colors is the best way to go.
Is that what it is?
Not like tight checkerboards or plaids. Like a tight weave print tends to like really it creates like a moire effect on the screen, and it's very just particularly in an interview.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like what you wear is really important. And for me, it's like my logo's like purple. I'm like, okay, what can I get that's a little on brand for me? But I tell you, one of the first webinars that I did, I was doing the technology and it was a speaker. He showed up with we used to call it a wife beater. I don't think you can call it that anymore, but a tank top. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like why would you do that? So I had to have a little conversation with him after about like what appropriate dress would look like. So yeah. So think about what looks good on camera. Like solid shirts look good. You want to find a color that doesn't, like t-shirts with a lot of words on it. Probably not your best thing. So why don't we do this? And I'll give you an option. You can either open up your microphone or share in the chat. What do you think is good? What do you think maybe could be better? What are some potential risks, if anything, with this setup? So let's assume this gentleman is delivering a webinar. Looks like he's in his house, not sure if it's his living room or bedroom. Looks like he's at a table. But what do you think? Is this good? Danny, yeah, exactly. It's the glare from the window. So glare from the window. So I have this beautiful window in front of me, and I'll show you a picture in a second. I close it because the glare like reflects on like my frames and things like that. So yeah. So the glare from the window can be bad, and I'll actually show you what happens. So this is what happens. If you have too much light from behind you, you look a little washed out and hard to see. Anything else from this gentleman that you would change? Hold on. Sorry, I'm trying to go back here. There we go.
I would think well, I'm not 100% sure, but the angle might be a bit off in the camera.
Yep. So here's the thing. Angle is super important. And if you're using a laptop, it's almost impossible for you to get the correct angle. So this is Michael Krumpak. So no one's ever told me this, but this is what I think works well. Your eyes should actually be parallel to the camera. So in this case, he's looking down. So if I'm doing the same thing, you're going to kind of see my chin, you're going to see the top. It just doesn't look like it's framed correctly. So great ideas to get a nose hairs. Is that mine? Do I have nose hairs? To get a stand or do something, put books, something like that to elevate your camera. And the other thing for me, again, this is a pet peeve. People that have the real bulky headphones, I just like there's so many smaller ones. I get it. If you're in an open area and you have to be on phone calls and things like that. But for me, the open bulky headphones are a little bit too much. So there's a lot of cool.
And in that they're Bluetooth, they're consuming more processor power, creating another viable possibility for signal loss.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the name of the game. How do you optimize the technology? So use a wire instead of Bluetooth. Use a wired connection. Don't use your AI in noise filters. Get a good computer, get a good internet connection. If you're going to be doing a lot of webinars, you may need to, contact your cable provider and get a little bit of upgrade. And it's usually not that much more expensive compared to what it was a while back ago. So you also want to be important. I thought about the center cam thing. You like it? Yes. Anything else on that, Jimmy?
No, I don't know. Cheryl said she's got it, and I've thought about it for a long time.
The center, like
repositioning. Yeah, the little one that drops down.
Yeah, it clips on the top, and then it has like a little tiny thing, and then the camera is in the middle. Or like if I'm noticing that I'm always looking over at you because you're talking instead of the slide, I can move it around so that I am always looking dead into the camera.
That's
nice.
awesome. I've seen those. I've not
It's
tried them
hardwired.
out,
It's
but
hardwired. It's not
Yeah.
a Bluetooth. So I love it.
it's a hardwired camera that you can basically, I've seen some that have a
Clip.
suction cup. You can put it like wherever you can
Mhm.
move it. So if you're looking in the middle of the screen, you can do that. For
Right.
me, like when I'm doing coaching, I'm a big note taker, which I know is like a sin with ICF, but I usually have my camera and the client's camera at the top, right underneath the camera. And then
Yeah.
I have my notes so that I can
Exactly.
jot down a couple things. And that just makes it, again, it just increases the intimacy a little bit. So there's some cool lights. There's ring lights. I just got this one yesterday because I wanted to try it out. It's like 15 bucks on Amazon. There's also some square ones that are nice. However, for those of you that have glasses, it can be really crazy if you have ring lights with glasses, because then it's like you look like this guy without the ring light. So just be careful. And I'm going to show you where I have my lights here in just a little bit.
Cheryl,
I
by the
also
way, you
have a,
don't look like that
yeah.
guy at all.
Oh, good. Thank you. Let me go get my glasses and I'll try it. So, these stands are really good. This is actually my computer, and the little stand, you can adjust it, you can move it up, you can do it down.
Nice.
So again, these are just little hacks. So if you want to see behind the scenes what I have, so I actually have 3 monitors, including my computer. I have the slides to my right on my big monitor, and I have 2 ring lights. And I had to put them there because they kept reflecting into like my certificates and stuff like that back there. So you just kind of have to play with it. But the point is, you just want to put just, a couple seconds into thinking, how can your lights, how can your background, how can, the environment, the ambiance, be as professional as possible. Any questions before we go into a little bit more about eye contact? Oh, Cheryl, thanks for the center cam. That's cool. So if anyone wants to check it out, that's a new thing. So maybe we'll have to add this. All right. So let's talk about eye contact. The challenge is your camera is at the top, so you have to make sure that you adjust, and we've talked about that. So again, eye level camera, you don't want to use the camera if it's on your laptop looking up. And again, these are just, some suggestions. So it's up to you, like what you want to do. Um, Here's an example of you have the window and the light. This looks to be like a ceiling fan, and it's just not centered. So again, find ways that you can kind of frame yourself. And actually, the last webinar I did, I'm writing a book, and I did like a preview of the book a couple months ago. Jimmy was there, and I like played it back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my like I was like this the whole time. So it's like, it's always good to have maybe another set of eyes, or ask someone maybe that's helping you with your technology to make sure that everything looks as good as possible. And I thought this was a good thing as well. So notice, this is what I learned from the National Speakers Association. You guys are either going to love this or hate it. But if I take a drink of water, there is a risk that, one, I'm going to look up, I'm going to make noise with the plastic and everything, and it doesn't really look that classy. So the trick is, get a glass and a straw so that you can like look at the camera and look at people without being distracting and making noise. So again, take it or leave it. What do you think about this setup? Let's assume that this person is delivering a paper straw, please. Thank you. I did buy these a long time ago, so I have to use them up. Yes. Biodegradable is preferred. What do you think about this fine lady? Any comments, observation? What do you think about the microphone here? Any reactions? Love the plant. It is a nice
If she's
plant.
on omnidirectional, she'll be all right. But if she's on cardioid, she might have an issue.
Yeah, so it might be an issue about kind of picking her up. But this is my thought. If you're a newscaster or you're doing a podcast and it's one-way communication where I'm presenting and someone is like listening and not interacting, I think it's perfectly fine. For me, I feel it to be distracting and a physical barrier between me and my customer, or me and my client. And if you think of
you
like
mean actually having it in camera,
actually having
Gotcha.
the microphone, like the sticking out, protruding. And I've done it before. You know, I've done some recordings and things like that, and I've done some webinars and I've tested some things out. But my personal preference is not to use that because it looks like a barrier. It also, to me, makes it look like the speaker is more important and more knowledgeable than the client. And with coaching, you kind of want everybody to be on the same page. So just my particular thoughts. I know that we've had some people that use it, but think about it. I think they look great when you're doing podcasts and videos, but like I like just kind of the, you know, intimacy of being able to talk to people and communicate without any type of barrier. Okay, here's the other thing, and we've all had virtual backgrounds. Virtual backgrounds, I think, are gorgeous, and you can do the branding and you can do all these fun things. I think they're great as long as you don't move. As soon as you move, like the five fingers become like two fingers, or the ear kind of goes missing and it gets blurry. So again, just my reaction. Um, be careful when you're using the virtual backgrounds or even like dimming the background behind you. And like there's times where it's like, oh, I don't have time to clean my room. I'm gonna dim it. I can't go to my office, whatever. But just be careful and watch it on the playback to see how it looks. But my suggestion is to limit the virtual backgrounds because I think it makes you look scary when you move. I think there was a AT&T commercial or something like that about that. All right. Any questions about technology before the next 15 minutes or so when we talk about technique?
I had a question about the funny thing is, I didn't realize we were talking about like Zoom sessions with potential or with clients. I was thinking like from a presenter's mode the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
like we're like what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
My solution to all of those problems or issues is just do it by phone and forget about Zoom.
Okay.
And then nobody has to worry about any of those things if it's a
Yeah.
client session.
So that's an option too. Any other comments or reactions so far? So kind of the thought is, you know, if you want to kind of keep it clear and intimate, just use the phone. You don't even have to use Zoom. Yeah.
Totally. I don't worry about your background. You don't
Yep.
worry about my background.
Yep. Yep.
I can sit in a
And
comfortable chair.
the ICF, I think part of that same study, majority of people are using Zoom for coaching than telephone. So more
Yeah.
people are doing face-to-face virtual calls, I guess.
I see, and I see what Cheryl's saying about 75% of communication is
Yeah,
nonverbal.
yeah.
I agree
Yep.
with that. If you use the phone, you get really good at seeing with your ears. Like I can tell exactly what's going on with my client when, you know, like with my eyes closed, I can tell what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally hear you. And everybody always calls me out on that. They're like, oh, you don't see their facial expressions. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I can hear it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, you're the authority. Yeah, and
No,
it depends on
auditory.
your coaching preference
I am
and your
not the
coaching
authority.
style. So,
Let's get clear.
you know, everyone has some different ideas. So, you know, try out a couple things, see what you think. Maybe there's a way that you can incorporate a couple things that you know, I'm not saying one's good and one's bad. Just, you know, take it all into account and you know, think about it. But the big reason for all this is in meetings, like 50% of us are distracted. We're checking email. We're like, look, oh, someone mentions this great camera that sticks to the middle of your screen. So we click the link and then we go to something. Like there's just so many distractions when you have a computer in front of you. So it's even more important to make sure that your meetings are engaging. And they say that you should be checking in with your participants like every 3 to 4 minutes. Do a poll, do a question, ask someone for a comment. Sometimes I put people on the spot and call them. So yeah. So the goal is to make it as engaging as possible. And there's a lot of cool things. You can do whiteboards. Zoom has new technology where people can actually chat before the meeting and after the meeting. I don't know if anyone's done any of that. If you have, let me know in the chat pod. But there's a lot of new things out there. You could be doing a panel discussion. You could invite some other people. There's ways that you can take notes. We talked a little bit about AI. There's some really great AI tools, but some people love it and some people are like, well, where does it go? Like we were, again, Jimmy and Karen and I were having a conversation before we started. It's like, there's this great AI information that is summarized, but like, what if it's confidential? What if it's your client and someone else gets it? And where does it go in the cloud? So there's a lot of things to consider out there. So you want to involve participants as often as possible, typically every 3 to 4 minutes. And there's some webinars, I'm not like this, but give me a yes, or give me a rock, or type coaching if you love coaching. Like anything to kind of get people to like engage and give you some sort of reaction is really nice. Like I'm looking at all of you on camera, like everyone looks fairly engaged. I don't see anyone, at least on my screen, that doesn't have their camera on. So I saw a cute little kitty cat kind of cross someone's camera here, which is kind of cute. I should probably let my dogs out, but so the point is you just want to kind of read your audience, and it's always helpful if you have another person. Like if Jimmy and I were to do this tomorrow, I would say, "Oh, Jimmy, maybe you could like focus on some more of the technology or focus on the questions so that I can focus on more of the presentation." So it's just finding ways to make sure that it doesn't get dull and it doesn't get boring, because there's so much temptation in front of everyone's fingertips with their computer. All right. I talked to you about my little technique about the glass. What do you guys think about that? This is actually from the video series that I have. So I like to say, show some class and get a glass. Avoid slipping while you're quietly sipping. So just another technique. And then I just have a couple more slides here, and then we're gonna have some time if you guys have any questions or comments, or a lot of you have done webinars, 75% of you do training, so it's kind of a great opportunity when we get together for a little bit of networking. So I encourage you guys to, chat with each other and share some information as well. So what's new with Zoom? My invitation is to check it out. I have to say, like I've been using Zoom for about 4 years. How long have you guys been using it? About like the same amount, maybe a little bit longer. But I feel like it's gotten better. Like every time I use it, there's like, oh, what does this do? And if you spend some time and go through and look at the settings, you can really kind of customize it. But these are some things you can intelligently process recordings. You can get your meeting summarized if you feel comfortable doing that. You can make queries in the meeting. You can take your meeting summary and it actually helps you draft responses and draft messages after the meeting. There's whiteboards, which is nice. We haven't used whiteboards today, but that's kind of an opportunity. Instead of a chat, you can open up a whiteboard and then everyone can kind of type their answer on the whiteboard. There's also a new integration that Zoom has where it now syncs with your calendar and allows people to like schedule meetings with you over Zoom. So there's a lot of new things to look at. And, I'm sure in a month or two from now, there's even going to be a lot more. But I'm just kind of curious, like, is there anything that you have used in Zoom, or if you use another webinar platform that has been helpful for you that you'd like to share with the other coaches on the call? Going once. Google Meet is the backup. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I actually know coaches that they're like, I'm tired of paying the $200 a year or whatever it is. I'm just going to go with Google Meet. And Google Meet has gotten a lot better. I noticed that like some TVs even come with it loaded. if they have a camera. So that's a nice background, nice backup if Zoom goes down. Yeah, thank you for that. Good. And then also, just to direct you guys to the chat pod, there's also a quick survey if you have a moment to do it. So Zoom One is also a new offering, or at least one that I recently learned about Zoom. This gives you the AI companion. It also creates virtual workspaces. It has that online whiteboard, the appointment scheduler, and team chat. Some of them, there's additional fees and prices for them. Some of them are included with a basic membership if you have that. So those are some things to think about. So then the final slide I have before opening up questions is, part of being a coach is to grow your business and offer people different services. So I don't care if you're interested in this or not. I just did it more of like kind of a demo. But if anyone needs help, I'm willing to give you 5 hours of one-on-one support. We can look at your slides, we can set you up in Zoom, we can practice, we can create polls, we can do whatever you want. I'm not going to charge you my, normal rate. It would be like less than $500 for 5 hours, so less than $100 an hour. I'm only going to do this for a couple people, and I don't know how long I'm going to do it, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there. So as you're doing webinars, there's opportunities where you can offer people, why don't you come back for a little bit more on this topic? Or here's a ebook that you can buy, or here's, something else that you can do. And I've gone to a whole bunch of like webinars to train you on like how to sell and how to put it together. And that's not part of this. And it's not really my sweet spot, but it's good at the end of webinars, especially for those of you that have been so kind to stick around, to give, some extra things. So I also have some freebies, which includes the Becoming a Virtual Meeting Virtuoso, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 8-part, like 30-40 second videos. I have development guides. I have a whole bunch of freebies and stuff. So if you're interested in some tools, you want to share them with your clients or whatever, feel free to scan the QR code and grab a couple of those for yourself. And these are all on YouTube. If you scan that same QR code, it'll take you to a flow page, and you can go down and there's articles and videos and things like that to help you. So that's all I have for today. I'm just kind of curious. Is there any takeaways or anything that you either have learned or are going to perhaps maybe think a little bit differently about when preparing for and developing your next webinar? And Cheryl, I see that you unmuted, so maybe we can start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna ditch the plastic and get me a glass. That's for sure.
Cheers to that.
Two things I wanted to share was, whenever I give a webinar, and I learned it from somebody else, I always say, I'll give you 15 minutes of my time, and I put the link to my calendar in the chat, and I convert 10 to 15% of those 15-minute appointments into
Oh,
coaching.
wow. Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that, because if you're not doing that, it is a great tool. The other thing that I do is most of the webinars I give for free for SCORE, for the Chamber of Commerce in St. Augustine in New Jersey, and I don't get paid anything for it. But what I do say is my payment is your Google review. And I click and then have them click that. It'll take them to my Google page for my website.
Oh, wow.
So you get something for it. That's the
Yeah.
benefit, that you end up with a lot of reviews. Google likes recency. So I gave a webinar last week. So yeah. It was
Yeah,
good.
some really good tips. And so I volunteer at SCORE. I was on one of Cheryl's webinar about how to like customize LinkedIn. I reached out to her, I clicked her link, I scheduled the 15-minute. I think we ended up talking about my upcoming trip to Hawaii a lot, but it was an opportunity to kind of talk to someone offline. So that's a great idea. So let people know that you're available for a call. Here's all my information. Here's my website, my flow page where you can get in touch with me if you want to talk or debrief or whatever. I have a pretty much open door policy as long as we're not, spending so much time I can't get my coaching done. But yeah, so those are some good techniques. Any other tips or suggestions or comments from today before we wrap up? We got about 2 more minutes left. So the floor is yours.
So I'll just say that this was really helpful to me. I want to start doing webinars, but gosh, I mean, the information you gave on protecting yourself from being kicked off the internet and all the other things is really good.
Good.
I use Zoom for everything I do, so that was really helpful to really look and see what else it can do. And then the talking to your participants every 3 to 4 minutes in one way or the other. I knew it was important to engage them, but I really don't wrap that in when I'm doing training. So that really helpful. This was a great use of an hour.
Great. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
And go ahead
Yeah.
and
And
fill out
I
the
mean, I've been to
survey.
some great webinars where someone's just talking and it's so interesting and so engaging, but it is a missed opportunity when you can try to do some polls and get a sense of, what some of the challenges are. So great.
Danny has her hand up, Michael.
Okay. Danny?
I have a question. So I'm a life coach working with women's empowerment issues.
Okay.
And I did a webinar that I sort of modeled after an in-person little seminar with a project. And I struggled with how to get the materials to the people on the webinar and modify the whole experience so that they could participate the same way that they would have in person. It worked out fairly well, but I was just wondering if anybody else had any experience using materials, pre-sending materials to registrants, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. I have some ideas, but let me open it up to see if anyone else has a response to her question.
I think it's a nice idea to send materials beforehand, as long as it's not the slide deck you're going to use.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Well, it was an
100%.
activity.
Send that. That's all great. As long as it's not the slide deck you intend to use during the webinar, because then you're kind of like, well, you already showed them everything. And but yeah, I love the idea of sending stuff beforehand.
I think another way that I haven't done an official webinar. I'm about to do something this coming week, but I am thinking about including some of the materials. I'm co-leading it with somebody, and I'm going to just post it in the chat for people to download as we're sitting there, so that they have it available at that time, because it's not something critical for them to have in advance.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. If you make something a Google Docs and then, make it available to share with anyone, that I've used that before, and that's worked pretty well.
I like the idea of sharing it in the chat during the session. My not concerns, but my thoughts on that would be, well, number one, not everybody joins by computer. So if they're on a phone, it's going to be a pain in the butt if they can view it at all. Number two, much like we find with our surveys, and I'm not calling anybody out here, I don't know who fills them out, a link in the chat, not everybody sees it. Again, if you're on your phone, you might not see it, or you forget about it and it's gone, and then they don't get the material. And then if you send it to them by email, at least they'll get it on a format that works for them in that, even if it is later. So, but I would do both. Put it in the chat and send it to them later or beforehand, and then that way you cover the bases. But so many people use their phones now, even for these Zoom calls. I find if I'm on a Zoom and people start sending things in the chat, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even participate.
Yeah, I like the idea of like being redundant. Send it to them before, give them access in the chat, cover it in the, send it to them afterwards if you need to. Everyone's so busy and disorganized, so the more you can coddle them, it's make sure that they do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think we're a little bit over. That's all I have. Thank you guys for taking time out of your busy Tuesday. I know this is a crazy time of the year, but it was really nice working with you guys. I've learned some stuff from you. Hopefully, you've learned some stuff from me. And if I can help you with anything, keep in mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you for taking time out on a Tuesday to prepare all this for us and share everything that you've learned. Like I read, you have so much extensive background, and it really came out when you were talking about all you've learned and applied.